Fox News alert, Russian forces closing in on Kiev as officials fear the Ukrainian capital could fall as early as this weekend. So as the world watches Moscow shatter peace in Europe, the big question remains, has Putin set his sights on countries beyond Ukraine? Let's bring in Fox News senior strategic analyst and retired four-star general Jack Keane to help us understand. General, always great to speak with you. Before we look forward in the future, give me your perspective. I know you feel like this hasn't gone exactly according to plan for Putin, so give me your perspective on the present. How do you think Putin sits today? Stronger, feeling confident, or weaker?
Well, certainly there are a number of surprises here. He selected the most ambitious plan he could possibly select, and that's 4 axes of advance. All of them require their own logistic support. All of them require their own air support. The air campaign after the first day, it's obvious, did not go well. Excuse me. They left parts of the Ukrainian Air Force intact, parts of their infrastructure, which was quite stunning. They weren't able to prepare for their assault forces in terms of attacking Ukrainian defensive positions as effectively as they wanted. So that's why the attack stalled in three out of the 4 of those axes, which certainly surprised most of us. The Ukrainians really had, I think, a pretty good day. I mean, it's obvious what's going to happen here, Will. I mean, they outmatched the Ukrainians, but you certainly got to admire the Ukrainians' will here and the steadfastness for them to fight for their country and to fight for their families, right, and their way of life. Your heart goes out to them for sure. Listen, there's really challenges ahead, Will, here for Putin. He's going to topple the government and move to some kind of Ukrainian pro-Russian government. This was the same exact government that the people of Ukraine threw out in 2014. Hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating against it, and Yanukovych fled to Russia. And that started the entire crisis of 2014 with the annexation of Crimea and moving them into eastern Ukraine. We're about to go through a similar phase like that again, and it's not without its challenges for Vladimir Putin here to make this transition and to keep that government in place despite the almost overwhelming opposition to it by the people of Ukraine.
Yeah, I asked you whether or not he's stronger or weaker today. What I should have said is this fight tougher than anticipated for Vladimir Putin? And clearly your answer is, although it's inevitable he will eventually win this short-term war, it's much tougher than he anticipated. And also tougher in the long term, to your point, to pacify or control Ukraine. But looking beyond that, General, what do you... Look, we're seeing Jennifer Griffin yesterday reported there's some troop buildup, Russian troop buildup on the Polish border. Everybody's concerned about what could happen in the Baltics. It's hard to climb inside his mind, but where does this go next? What are the ambitions of Vladimir Putin?
I think we just listen to Mr. Putin and stop wishing away things. I mean, he has said he's threatened the former Soviet republics that are now a part of NATO. When he was justifying his operation on Ukraine, he threatened those states, and he wants to bring them back into his sphere of influence. I think we take that seriously. And NATO has to outgun themselves in terms of having an effective deterrence on the ground, not on paper with Article 5. I'm talking about troops on the ground, and the target has got to be the Baltics. And certainly Poland, but the Baltics primarily because they are clearly the most vulnerable. And of the 3 of them, Lithuania is the most vulnerable because it's got Russia on both sides. So yes, and I'm familiar with a war game we played just a couple of years ago as part of a congressional commission, and Russia took 2 of the capitals in 60 hours, and we had to fight our way back into Europe because we're an ocean away in the United States after them having taken out our arrival airports and our arrival airfields. A major, major challenge. We cannot take this for granted. And I'm not talking about a huge amount of U.S. troops here, Will. That's not the right answer. We have a challenge with China, and we're outgunned and outmanned there, and we have to move resources in that direction. This is about the Europeans.
Right.
the Europeans sticking up for themselves. The German military is almost non-existent in terms of its capabilities. I'm being overly critical to make the point. I mean, and yet they have the largest economy. And there's other countries like that where there's not much capability. We have got to get serious here in NATO and upgun our capability. And our defense budgets are inadequate. Will, during the Cold War, the defense budget averaged around 7% of GDP. Now it's south of 3%. And it's inadequate to deal with the threat in Europe that we're facing and the threat in China that we're facing, and add to that the dimension of what the Iranians are about to do when they get the JCPOA windfall money in a few weeks as a result of a new deal, and what they're going to do with that money to destabilize the Middle East.
Right. We
have major strategic challenges, and we're inadequately funded.
General, I want to save a minute to follow up with you about China, but let me just follow the conversation you just introduced. So that's fascinating. You're asking that the Europeans amass troops in the Baltics as a physical deterrent to Russia going into Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Not just American troops, or not even primarily American troops, but European troops to serve as a physical deterrent. And you mentioned your war games, that you guys participated in a few years ago, taking the capitals of the Baltics in 60 hours. I'm just curious, where did those war games play out? What else happened? Was Poland taken over as well? What did the war games show Russia could do?
Well, to run the counteroffensive, to take back the Baltics, we had to come in through Poland. But we had to fight our way back into Europe because obviously we were at war with Russia, and we're dealing with attack submarines, we're dealing with cyber warfare in our country, and we're dealing with arrival airfields and arrival ports that were severely damaged by their air campaign. Yeah, so a significant challenge. We can't take this Article 5, this paper agreement that we have for granted. It is about boots on the ground, facing off and making certain that Putin understands there really is a deterrent here. That's what sends the message, not rhetoric.
Yeah. And General, so then there's this, perhaps the scariest aspect of it. You talked about it, and that's what does China see? What does China do in this moment? The Chinese Assistant Foreign Minister is blaming the U.S. for Russia's invasion. He said the following: the U.S. has been fueling the flames, fanning up the flames. How do they want to put out the fire? What should we expect now from China?
Well, they're not endorsing or condemning this Russian invasion, but believe me, privately, they're cheering from the sidelines. Because this plays right into President Xi's narrative, Will. I mean, you're familiar with it. And he's talking about the fact that the United States and the West are declining powers. China is a rising power. The world order as we knew it is changing and coming to their sphere of influence in Russia and China. That is what they're fundamentally about, and that is why they have a relationship together. They have significant historical differences, but they've come together because they want to change the world order. And you see Putin certainly taking a serious step in that direction right now. And China, I think the danger zone comes after the National Party Congress in the fall, when President Xi will be enshrined as the new leader, likely with no term limits. In 23, 24, and 25, I think we're in the danger zone where he will be incentivized to do something about Taiwan in terms of using military force. And we have got to build an effective deterrence that we do not have right now in the Indo-Pacific region.
General Jack Keane, concerning but enlightening information this morning. Always great to talk to you.
Yeah, great talking to you, Will, and the team. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.